Hi, my name is Chris McAllister. Welcome to the SightShift podcast. If you've ever found yourself in that tense place of leadership where big goals collide with deep conviction, there's an old word for that. It's called wilderness. And when you're in the wilderness, in the uncertainty, you're in a beautiful place because that's where you can find ancient wisdom. For ambitious, faith-driven leaders, I want you to know there's a way forward and you're not a bad leader to be where you are. We're going to help you in this podcast take all of those moments and use them to make culture your edge in your team, in your organization, in your family.
Well, welcome into the SightShift podcast. Once again, so good to have you along with us for another episode. He's Chris, I'm Mark, and we are working our way through Make Culture Your Edge, the book, and additional content that we're diving into. We're in the home stretch of this series, pulling the culture content out of the book. We've looked at what to pay attention to. We've looked at what not to do. We've looked at the risk factors. Last episode, we presented the impact culture model in terms of a formula: right communication plus right change plus right connection equals impact culture. Today, we're going to double click on that right communication and understand that a little bit better. Again, along the lines of we've visited what not to do. What does it look like to do? In this case, communication, right? So I think already today, and it's 11 a.m. as we're recording this.
I am hungry.
You're always hungry. We've been rocking today for a few hours already. I think this is our third Lord of the Rings reference already, and it's just a random day.
Two white bald nerds trying to help people be leaders.
So there is a connection. You and I would love to talk Lord of the Rings all the time, but there is a connection here. So I want to play with this.
Cool.
As a way to draw in the ideas and to play them out in a well-known story form. The Council of Elrond, early on in the Fellowship of the Ring, number one of the trilogy.
I got the scene in my head.
The elves are there, the men are there, the dwarves are there, the hobbits are there, the wizard is there, and they need a breakthrough moment.
Oh, dang!
Right?
Dude, you may be superseding how that image got written over by the last Stranger Things episode. So I need you to purify the scene again. And you just did.
They need a breakthrough moment.
Dang it. That's awesome.
So as we're thinking about communication here.
Yeah.
And right communication.
You just made so much make sense.
I'm going to make it make a little more sense. Elrond and Gandalf both know what's needed. Mm-hmm. They know the conclusion that this council needs to come to.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's to destroy the ring.
Yeah.
But they didn't start there.
Dude, it's so good, man. I'm nerding out so much.
Right? Right? And so the Elrond it's Elrond's court, but Gandalf is right up there too. They let the information come out.
Yeah.
They round out some of the story. Gandalf tells his story. Elrond goes back millennia and fills in the rest of the context and the gaps. And here's one of the other things that I thought was really cool. We talked about Boromir, the character, earlier today. Boromir raises some strong objections.
Yeah.
You know, I love Gimli. He stands up, swings his axe, and is like,
ready for action.
Exactly. let's just deal with it and get it done now.
Dude.
Boromir is like, well, why should we waste this opportunity? If you can think of him as like a resistor, he's expressing what everybody else is thinking. He just has the courage to say it out loud in that context. Why this and not that? Why can't we take the ring to Gondor? Why can't we co-opt this power?
There's a
right?
template that applies to this moment that I've never connected that we could get into as a bonus, but we don't have to.
Well, connect some of the dots.
Okay.
If it's worth
It is.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off.
No, like I'm setting the
Just on
stage.
fire.
I'm setting the scene. This group of Middle Earth residents,
Yeah.
they need a breakthrough,
Yeah.
and there's a communication that gets locked in here because of how, of course, Tolkien wrote the story, but how Elrond navigated the whole scene.
Dang it. I mean, it is like, hang on, people, because this has every bit of so much relevance for every meeting you're in this week, for sure the most important meetings, and ultimately the breakthrough that has to occur. And it's also why Stranger Things failed so bad in their last season, because their breakthrough moment was a forced moment, not true to the storyline, where one of the main characters comes out as gay. And so then somebody took that and applied it to Lord of the Rings, and it showed Frodo walking up to the circle and going, "Guys, I'm gay." And so I think the reason even like the larger culture laughed at that scene, because it was a false breakthrough moment.
Yeah.
And what Tolkien had so brilliantly in there is you're going to have people react, and this is a template that is helpful. You've got the people who are very activist oriented. If you don't have the right breakthrough moment, then the action just gets taken away, and Gimli leads and he tries to break the ring, and then everybody else starts just kicking into action. You have the guardian character, which is Boromir, right? Which they are the stewards of Gondor. They're trying to preserve the past, and the past has to be preserved, but it has to be progressed. And there's a tension point there. Then there's the relational, which you can see that in the role he's playing at that time, Strider the Ranger, and trying to keep the group connected. You know, it's the same thing that Gandalf is trying to do in Elrond in a way. But ultimately, the spoiler is Frodo has to step forward. He's the only one that can do it.
Yeah.
Like, he's the one. And he builds the moment so perfectly in a pregnancy with letting, and you're connected a bunch of dots here for me, letting the moment, they're struggling for it.
That's right.
So part of what's making this magic moment happen, I'm going to break the fourth wall a little bit, is Mark prepares for these, and I get to just be here. And so, a lot's hitting my brain in the moment. But the breakthrough moment that has to occur, it's fought for.
Yeah.
And we joked about this earlier today. Like, we see the data on a team. We know the breakthrough moment they need.
Yep.
We know it in seconds looking at the data. They have to come to that conclusion. And so even hearing the way that you're like, Gandalf had to take them back through the millennia so that this moment could emerge, so they could fight for it, so they could come to their conclusions. Because it wouldn't have been powerful if Gandalf would have convened everybody and just said, we need Frodo to do this.
Right.
They also had to come to their own conclusion of that.
Right.
And you could see Gandalf's face. They showed it in the movie so powerfully.
Right.
I don't remember if that was in the book. He's like, oh.
Yep. Because he knows what it's going to take.
Yeah. It's going to take the sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's the only way forward.
Yeah.
A sacrifice has to be made. Wow. And of course, we'll click through the three parts that have to happen. But what it's painting out is all three of those.
Yep.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's
so
killer.
good, right?
That's
so,
killer.
So good.
Shoot.
And so to get to the end of that scene,
Yeah.
and to know the ring must be destroyed.
Yeah.
Again, Gandalf and Elrond knew that going in, but everybody was willing to chip in. And of course, the fellowship fractures, and right, like there's challenges to come for sure. But everybody at the end of the scene realized the mission is to destroy the ring.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to do it. We got to find a way.
Yeah.
But we've got to destroy the ring. They were aligned.
And then a visionary showed up, not the guardian, not the relational, not the activist, that said, this is the way we'll do it. And it was Frodo. And what's so powerful about this is whoever sees clearly in that moment, they need to be the leader in that moment. You can have an overall organizational leader. You have Elrond and Gandalf in this situation that are the overall organizational leaders. And oftentimes, when they've led long enough, they become that place of wisdom because they can generate vision. But like in a team meeting, just because you're the team leader doesn't mean you're always going to have the vision. And in an awesome culture or atmosphere, you're going to allow the problem to be owned deep enough, and they're going to feel like they can speak up, that the vision can come from anywhere. Like that's healthy culture. And we live in a dumb world, which is like, well, the receptionist isn't going to have the vision. They might. Do you have an atmosphere that can take all this information in and still discern? Sometimes the idea is good but bad in deployment and has to be tweaked a little bit or whatever. But I think that's another, powerful application point from why that moment is so loved by so many, because it's real.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And by Frodo stepping into that moment,
Yeah.
he inspired representatives of all of the peoples of Middle Earth to say, I'm in. Like, I don't remember if it's Book or Peter Jackson on the big screen. They blur in my mind. But it's so inspiring when Aragorn steps up and says, you have my sword. Gimli steps up and says, you have my axe. Legolas says, you have my bow. And if you recall, Elrond and Gandalf are making eye contact. Like, they're seeing what's playing out. And I think it was Gandalf in the mischievous wink, like, I told you so. This is, it's coming together.
Dang it. We're the bosses. We could cancel the rest of our afternoon and just watch the movie. Oh, this is so good. But, and I'm thinking of moments even where you and I have, like, looked at each other with teams, and it's like you can see either that moment is happening and it's unfolding, or they're missing it.
Yeah.
And we had a cautionary tale happen this last week of an organization where one of the executive leaders sat on this couch and was like, we did the opposite of what we should have done. What you laid out, we didn't do. And it's now in great disrepair and pain. And people are hurt because they missed their moment.
Yeah.
They missed their moment.
So help me bring this to communication and not just some fun episode talking about Lord of the Rings. You started down the path with a vision, and Frodo, by stepping forward and saying, I will do this, created a vision, but start to keep going down the path of vision.
If you really want to understand that moment, you're breaking it down into 3 parts, and this is what makes an effective vision. All this lives up under the vision that needs to be communicated, but the first move there is it's the ownership of the pain. Like, and so we have this tied to data and profiles. There is a profile who wants to rush past the pain. And when they learn to lead out of a secure identity under pressure, they actually become very good at not speeding the organization up to the solution. They slow it down to really own the problem. And that's a move that you have to learn to make. Lots of leaders get excited about something over the weekend. They've wrestled with the problem and they've thought about it. And so they roll in Monday full of the enthusiasm. And it's a false joy when it's built around a circumstance. So the joy that's really deep there, that's transformative, is I can find joy in the pain. I got to sit and stare with this problem. I've thought about it 100 times. I've run 12 sparring sessions with it on Claude. My team's hearing it for the first time. So you have to let this problem really seep into the organization's consciousness, the shared space the team is in. And relative to the insight, you have to spend time in the problem, right? So if
Meaning the bigger the problem, the longer it's going to take?
Totally, yeah. So it's why Gandalf had to recount through the millennia. This is a giant world-ending problem, so let's not rush through this.
Yeah.
We really have to make sure we feel it. And what an awesome leader will do at that moment is slow down time. So they're slowing down time in their honest expression of the pain, not rushing past it. And that's hard, because for that specific leader that struggles with doing that, they feel trapped in the pain. So they're trying to rush past it. But when they can learn to slow down time, the organization develops an intelligence over time. The team develops an intelligence over time. Before we get into the
communication of the vision, we have to answer the pain. The vision comes out of the pain. I mean, that's what makes an enduring organization. It's less about just trying to make money. It's more about mission. You know, same thing with a team that is trying to disrupt something, or a family or a marriage. I mean, you're coming out of a pain moment always to the next level of clarity and vision. So we have to stay in that pain. And the greatest way to figure out what is the pain that we need to focus on, it has to be the one that's the highest priority. It has to be the highest upstream when it's the one you least want to talk about. You know, like let's talk about fixing the Calendly scheduling link. I don't want to talk about why bad leads are coming in. I mean, that's a cheesy, dumb one, but it has as much application as you want to give it. So we got to start first with what is the pain we'd rather not stare down.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah. What's the second one?
Once you've stared down that pain, you know, we talk about things in terms today in terms of the brain and dopamine. So you need dopamine to make the sacrifice worth it. Dopamine has to kick in so you'll do the hard thing. Because vision isn't just something you proclaim. It's something that requires lived sacrifice. And when the endorphins kick in, which serves long-term recall, all this stuff starts rewiring in your brain to be willing to pay the price for this vision. So that's where we get to the next piece, which is meaning. What is the meaning we get out of addressing this pain? Now, the easy example from Lord of the Rings setup was, you know, darkness doesn't win. But thankfully, can we timestamp it a little bit? Thankfully, we don't live in a world where there's a high, powerful group of elite people who do things like traffic in humans and torture on an island.
We've clearly evolved past that.
We don't have to fight darkness anymore.
Right.
Right? And we don't prioritize what the Tao is at over and above human lives. And that's the thing. It's like, if you don't lead well, someone else will. Someone else will.
Someone else will lead.
Yeah.
But not necessarily well.
Yeah. Well, I would say they could provide a quality of leadership even if the character value is horrible. Because what Epstein is doing is he is meeting a pain point in a sick pervert's brain. And it is a better leadership than they're getting anywhere else. It's terrible. It's rotten at its core, character-wise. But it is something that is drawing people in. It's capturing their imagination.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, let's just take it even down a little bit more. You know, you think about the pull of the distraction economy now and what porn and sports betting and video games are doing to men's minds, right?
Yep.
You face a competitive atmosphere in capturing people's imagination like never before.
Yep.
And so this is why this meaning piece is so powerful. You have to be able to know your meaning that you get from it and make sure it's coming from a secure, healthy identity. Because if you're leading for validation over impact, that's what happens with all the Epstein stuff and lesser evils also. So you got to make sure. And the mistake that I see a lot, because we work a lot with business owners, they make meaning differently than the organization will. So would it be helpful if I went on that?
Yeah.
The number of times I've sat with a business owner and they're like, I just want everybody to get an owner mindset. Why? Because then they'll think like I think and act like I act, and they'll own it more. But they're not owners. So you're trying to force something on the organization. Do you want them all thinking like you really? No. You want them to have meaning in their role. So you get up and you're like, look, if we hit this target, this is the revenue projection. This is the profit margin. That means nothing. Translate that to, and our health benefits are going to keep coming, and we're going to get a stable paycheck, or our health benefits are going to improve, or we're going to be able to add this to the organization's budget so we can develop these items. That's real meaning making. You have to be able to get your own meaning, but you have to make meaning for the organization. And you don't have to be the all-seeing eye, wink, wink, and develop this meaning perfectly. Why not find out from them? What would make it meaningful for you to endure the pain? And that's what they're doing in the Lord of the Rings moment. They're not coming into that moment and going, here's the baby. They're letting it gestate. They're letting that baby come to term
Yeah.
so that this hatches in people's hearts and minds, and they know the meaning they get from it. And so for Gimli, it's like, well, I'm an activist, so you can have my axe, right?
Yep.
And on and on and on. But this idea of meaning is like, ultimately, the number one thing the human mind needs is meaning or purpose or however you want to frame it. And so this is why Maslow's hierarchy has been debunked, because it's not like I have to have all of my bills paid, then I can make meaning. The only way I've been able to recover and stay consistent, persistent, resilient in the midst of great hardship is because
into the meaning.
Bingo, meaning in spite of
Yeah.
the needs being met.
Yeah.
And so there's an intelligence here that you want to learn to develop, that you're asking what's the meaning they're getting out of this, what's the meaning you get out of this, and you're also offering direction and thought. Because you may think everybody wants a gym benefit, and they may just want to stop at Fridays at noon. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the answer.
Yeah.
This is the dumb thing that people do on LinkedIn where everybody goes, I got to copy paste. Another organization or team's truth doesn't have to be your organization or team's truth. But you don't really know unless you get in there and you're asking and you're connected. That was a lot. I know. But you freaking did this. It's Mark's fault, guys.
I'll take credit. I want to pause here before we hit the third one, because I think this will help to set up a question or a challenge in the third one. For the leader that's listening, that's just like, why can't people do this on their own? Why can't they make their own meaning? Like, I've given them all of this. I've given them the job. I've given them the pathway, the product. Like, and maybe I'm projecting myself into this situation, but the why do I type of objection or question, or why can't people just think like I do, like an owner? Respond to that, and maybe it's covering some of the same ground, but respond to that pushback.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. There is a reality that you can learn a ton about leadership. Wherever you find yourself, you can be a better leader. At the same time, there is a gifting function here too. And if your gift is leading, you should lead. It's an ancient saying. So there are people in the organization that are wired up and gifted to make meaning. So don't think everybody should be able to do it. You have to learn to cultivate that and develop that within yourself if you have it. And if not, there have to be people around you who can do it. You know, and that honestly, that's part of what we can do for teams and organizations really quick, is help them figure out, like, what's the meaning thread here to pull on. But it is a developable thing, but there has to be some raw gifting. And by saying that, it's not creating a hierarchy, because we're going to need the other giftings in the other parts of the model. Absolutely. I mean, if you drop me in a room and you go, Chris, you got one job. You got to figure out and read some relational cues that everybody else would miss, you know, or you got to book change, or you got to really complete change out at the edges and make it professional. I'm going to be like, can I have some help? You know, so what you're wanting to do is not create this kind of false hierarchy, but just recognize different gifting in different places. And if you're able to make meaning, if you're able to tap into a deep reservoir of meaning and dopamine and get those endorphins, and you start moving towards something that is unseen, that's the necessary function of leadership. It's your job to paint a compelling picture, to draw people into a future that is not yet real. So don't look at it as, why can't they do this? Look at it as, this is the opportunity that I have to bring the gift of who I am to the organization.
That's great.
And modern, leadership structure is really built on an ancient idea that there has to be people at the top who are outside of a lot of the pull down into still important things for the organization, because someone has to have the space and margin to hold and sustain, extend, and cast that vision. And it's not a better responsibility than the other responsibilities, but it is a responsibility that has to be fulfilled.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, let's keep rolling. So we've talked about facing the pain. We've talked about making meaning. What's the third one in order to get communication right?
And you can see how this just sets it up. It's the ability to communicate it succinctly, tight, capture people's imagination with the way it's expressed. The best storyteller wins, whether they have good or bad character. And so you're wanting to tell a story in a way that's super tight and super easy to grab a hold of. And there's an easy example to use that we've referenced before, but it doesn't get old. And I still use it, and it's still relevant. I'll use it now, yeah. Kamala Harris, what was her presidential slogan? I ask rooms that all the time.
Crickets.
Nobody has ever been able to tell me, ever. And it's not, it's the organizations you're working with. No, this is organizations across ideological spectrums.
Yep.
Organizations that you would think everybody in here donated to Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, and they don't know it. And then you can feel the pain in the room when I go, what's Trump's? Now, I've already come out in other ways saying I don't endorse the character there, the morality there. I do recognize the effectiveness of the storytelling.
Yeah.
Capturing interest with one phrase, one tight way to do it. Now, here's the dumb thing. What corporate leadership does that's so stupid, that's not professional in the way that it casts vision, is they jump right to the slogan. It's not founded in pain, and it doesn't make meaning, and so it's cheesy and stupid. So one of our earlier episodes we did in this series, we talked about the AU campaign, or the guy that you worked for that would mark everything in red. You know,
Yep.
He never gave it a tight slogan of like, red or you're dead, green isn't mean. What's a color that rhymes with life? You know, but like that's how quick I can sit here and do this and it be kind of bad and kind of good, but better than a dumb, cheesy corporate slogan.
Yeah.
So when you're jumping right to the slogan, you are doing corporate theater. It's dumb theater, and it's not founded on the pain and not how people make meaning. And so it comes off as cheesy and glib. And so that's why there are people in the team who have trauma from cheesy slogans that would reject what I'm saying right now. And I'm saying to you, if you don't get it to this point, you're serving up a partially cooked dish.
Yeah.
It's not fully cooked. It's not ready for prime time. It's not ready for prime time until you can say it in a memorable, tight way and people grab it.
The other thing that comes out pretty strongly in the book and the work that we do is not just story, but the word metaphor as
Thank you.
as the way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like that's the honed skill and tool to be able to capture the metaphor. You know, back to the Lord of the Rings, the conclusion was the same. Elrond could have brought the vision at the very beginning, but he let everybody wrestle and struggle. And so they were willing to rally around the Fellowship of the Ring in order to accomplish the mission of destroying the ring.
Boom. That's it. We make a great team because I would have skipped over that. This is why preparation is good, you know, because I'd have been like later, crap. But that's the metaphor is when the lock-in occurs.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in a place years ago where I had too many reports, direct reports, overwhelmed, tons of meetings. I was super young as a leader in my mid-20s, 23 years ago. And I read a story about a guy who practiced throwing a discus as far as he could because he wanted to beat the world record. So he made one out of metal, marked it off in a field, got to where he could beat it, and went to the competition. Of course, this is pre-internet. And they handed him a wooden discus with a metal rim, and he'd been practicing all metal. And he blew right past the record. Mm-hmm. And then it said he trained under a greater burden so he could fly faster and farther. Now, even though that stirred up at the time insecurities in me, it was still a metaphor that allowed me to endure a great painful season.
Yeah.
I'm going to fly faster, farther later.
Yep.
The metaphor that has been the last few years powerful for me, and I forget it. And my wife reminded me this weekend, and I was like, don't tell me that. Mm-hmm. The better swimmer. Mm-hmm. You know, I was in choppy waters. I should get calmer waters. Well, how about you become a better swimmer? So again, that's that metaphor, and you need that moment collectively for the team or the organization. So thank you, because that's the finishing touch.
So for the leader who's not wired up naturally to think in metaphor, I wonder if for them this can feel a little bit like wizardry magic.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just trying to get people to do what I want them to do, or why again, back to more of that analytical data, like This is the goal. Just go get
Yeah.
right. So like remind us why, whether it's feels intuitive, whether it's familiar, whether it's our language or not, why metaphor and story is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, the metaphor is where the left and the right brain come together. So we're going to need your imagination captured because you're going to need to be creative for the next piece of the model. Because if you're not primed and ready for the creative breakthroughs, for the innovations, you're not going to be able to translate the vision into reality. So the metaphor is what gets the mind in the place that the prefrontal cortex relaxes and it's not over-indexing on logic, because when you're over-indexing on logic, you can only see the problem as you've always seen it. So you need a different way to see the problem, and the meaning making happens at the metaphor level. The brain relaxes, and then it synthesizes between the left and the right brain. If you need a more ancient take on this is why in religious traditions, the breakthrough always occurs around a metaphor. You were this, but now you're this. And so it's used throughout all kinds of stories we could quote from the Bible where there's a shifting of the metaphor. So it's really powerful when we're with business owners and leaders and just go, what's it feel like right now in this pain? And they're like, man, it feels like I'm spinning my wheels in mud. Okay, boom. Now we know the metaphor that your brain's organizing this around. You're going to communicate out of that. Because you're going to communicate out of that, you're going to communicate in a way that is not drawing out the best from the team. So we have to shift the metaphor, not forced, not hype, go back to facing the pain, but in an authentic, true way that is emanating out of who you are. So for me, it's not calmer waters, it's a better swimmer.
Yep.
Like that was the metaphor shift.
Yep.
And that's why.
Yep. So good. So in the book, just to kind of bring us back to the book content for a moment, there are 3 tests that a metaphor must pass in order to know you've got a good one.
Take us through them.
Yeah. Yeah. I will refer to my notes. The first is it's true to who you want to become. Does this metaphor get me further down the path of becoming, not just accomplishing,
Yes.
but individually and collectively who we are becoming as leaders, as a team? Does this metaphor get us further down the path? 2, does it sharpen our mindset? Or does it dull? If it sharpens your mindset, then it's moving you in the right direction. And the third one, is it helping to improve the world around you? So you got a winner if you can pass all 3 of these tests, and it takes the transition from I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels to we are in the midst of a struggle and we'll come out of this on the other side stronger, better for having been through the mud. You're way better at this than I am, but it's that pivotal shift that incorporates becoming, it incorporates mindset upgrades and its impact over validation.
Thank you. And I mean, I think some people, they would go, well, do I know who I want to become? Can I see my character at age 75 as clear as I can see the world around me today? Do I have any mindset rot in me where I'm a victim? And do I really have something I'm bothered about that I want to make better in the world? Do I have that kind of personal meaning? And I think there are plenty of leaders who would listen to this and go, crap, how can I do that for my team if I don't have that for myself? And I would sit with those 3 questions in every moment of margin. You can scrap weekends, whatever. Come through our one of our Figure That Shift Out groups, the rolling groups we do, because we will accelerate you to all 3 of those. It's designed to do that, because when you have vision, you will gravitate towards whatever is the clearest picture in your head. And sadly, a lot of people haven't surfaced it. And so they're slowly drifting towards this lesser form.
Yep. Well, that's the takeaway. That's the application. That's the go and do part of how we're going to wrap this up. So, right communication, stage 1 in a 3-stage model. We'll double click on right change with the next episode. Like I said at the beginning, we're down the home stretch in this series. Make Culture Your Edge is the book. It's also the website. And you can always find more at sightshift.com. Any last thoughts? Anything that we, other than Lord of the Rings, we'll turn the mics off. We'll riff on that for a little more.
No, just grateful to be here with you and do this. Ready to eat lunch.
All All right. Between Lord of the Rings and lunch and a podcast episode, it's been a good morning so far. Thank you for being with us. And again, makecultureyouredge.com, SightShift.com, 2 places you can go and find more. We'll see you again next episode.
Thanks so much for being with us on the SightShift podcast. I hope in some way we've encouraged you to face, lean into, and become aware of the moments that represent so much transformation possibility. If you want more, you can always go to SightShift, SIGHT, shift.com, and learn to make culture your edge.